All right, so we ended up Thursday with starting to factor using the greatest common factor and MAF. Again, the whole purpose is to be able to take problems apart. The whole purpose is to take problems apart. So the first step in taking problems apart is to find the greatest common factor. So greatest common factor is the biggest number that divides out, which for example, 1 was 3. If they have the same variable, we take it out. All of them had a t. So the greatest common factor is 3t. If you have a greatest common factor, you must take it out. You must divide it out. So if you divide it out, t squared minus 10t plus 21 goes in the parentheses. 3t goes outside. So let me blow this up just for people to see it. So the 3t on the outside, you don't touch anymore. It's done. Inside the parentheses is where you work. M is the last term, 21. A, middle term, negative 10. F is two numbers that multiply to 21 and add to negative 10, which is negative 7 and negative 3. So those are your two magic numbers. Step 3, you can write your answer. The 3t that you took out at the start of the problem comes down. Open your parentheses. T squared is t times t. Negative 7 goes in one parentheses. Negative 3 goes in the other. So that ends up making your final answer. So again, it's the same 3 steps. GCF, MAF, write the answer. So it's the same 3 steps. The main thing is, one, you got to put in some work, especially if your multiplication skills are not that good. So just a reminder on that. The same place you got the notes from, there was a factor sheet listed right there to help you with figuring out what multiplies to what. So the help is there. You have to take advantage of it. Help is there. You have to take advantage of it. So we did one example, one additional example of it on Thursday. So now we're going to do 2 more examples before we get into some word problem examples as well. Word problem applications of factoring. But any questions by anyone with GCF or MAF before we do example number 3? And if you have a question, please ask. Closed mouths don't get fed. You got 6 weeks left in the school year. Well, 5 weeks for those people who are passing the semester after May 20, I think it's May 21st. May 21st, if you're passing all your classes, you're done for the school year. If you're failing any classes on May 21st, you'll be coming in that last week for recovery week. Recovery week is basically that last chance before you either get signed up for summer school or signed up to repeat the class. But any questions before we do example 3? Cool beans then, let's get to work. So example 3, you got x to the third minus 3x squared minus 10x. So we're still solving this the same way. GCF, MAF, write the answer. So for example 3, we have a 1 in front of the x to the third, a 3, and a 10. A 1, 3, and a 10. So, what's the biggest number that will divide out of 1, 3, and 10? What can I divide out? Type in the chat, come off mute. Tell me something. Yeah. Let it show up on the quiz this weekend, and you don't know. Remember that first number is a 1. So if the first number is a 1, there's only one thing that you can take out. 1. Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate that. If 1 is one of your numbers, then the only thing that divides out is 1. So the biggest number is a 1. Now we look for the variable. So same variable, you have x to the third, x squared, and x. You can take out x. So your greatest common factor is 1 times x, which is just x. That's your first step. First step, since your greatest common factor is x, now you got to divide it out. So now we're going to divide it out. So now we divide out the x. So if you divide out the x, you end up with x squared minus 3x minus 10. So now we're done with step number 1. Any questions before we continue? Okay, since we've done GCF, we've done MAF for a couple weeks now. This is now the 3rd week that we're doing it. I am going to move a little bit faster, especially for those who are here and then, hey, just hello, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I'm ready to move forward. We're going to rely on those people who don't know what they're doing or don't have or have things that they're struggling with. They got to speak up now. They have to be advocates for themselves. They have to be willing to speak up for themselves. If they don't speak up, their grades are going to reflect that. But I can't hold other people back because they don't want to talk and they don't want to speak up. That's not fair. So we're going to keep this train moving. So there's the first step. Second step is MAF. So added that last term. So we only have to worry about the parentheses. So we only worry about what's in the parentheses. The last term is negative 10. The middle term, negative 3. So we need two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. So we need two numbers to make that work. So I'm thinking negative 5 and positive 2. If anybody agrees with me, let me know. But I think negative 5 and 2 are going to work. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. So now we can write our answer. So, me agrees. Let's keep this moving. So, if x is already a part of the answer, so we're going to leave it. Just take the x and bring it down. The parentheses, break it up into two parts. X squared is x times x. Negative 5, and then positive 2. That's it. Problem's over. Step 1, do the greatest common factor. Step 2, MAF. Step 3, write the answer. Any questions, example 3? All right, so example 4. So example 4, negative 2x to the third minus 14x squared minus 24x. So again, we're still dealing with greatest common factor. Still dealing with greatest common factor. So you've got a 2, a 14, and a 24. We need to figure out what will divide into all of those. So 2, 14, and the 24, what can I divide by? So if I'm looking at that 2, so I know 2 is 1 times 2. Let's see, Alyssa gave us 2. We're going to roll with that 2. So the biggest number is 2. But notice they begin with a minus sign. Remember, if it begins negative, you take out the negative. If your problem starts with the negative, then you take out the negative. So we're going to divide by a negative 2. We're going to take out negative 2. If it starts negative, you take out the negative. So the biggest number is negative 2. Look for our variable. X to the third, x squared, and x. So we can take out x. So our greatest common factor is 2x, negative 2x. So we divide out the greatest common factor. So divide everything by negative 2, negative 2x. So we have x squared plus 7x plus 12 with the negative 2x out in front. So there's step number 1. Any questions? Step number 1. And if you don't have any questions, that's good. If you do have questions and you don't say anything, that's on you. It's more of a you problem at that point. All right, let's do the MAF. So the M is the last term. M is the last number. Is negative 24. A is the middle number. Actually, not take that back. Slow myself down a little bit. So we're using what's in the parentheses. We do not go back to the original problem. So we have negative 2x, parentheses, x squared, plus 7x, plus 12. So once you take out the greatest common factor, you pick up from where you left off. Pick up from where you left off. So your last number is 12, and your middle number is 7. So we need two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. We need two numbers Then multiply to 12 and add to 7. So I think I can use 6 and 2. So I think I can use 6 and 2 to make this work. I think 6 and 2 will work out for me. 6 times 2 gives me 12. So that works out, right? These two numbers work. I can roll with these two numbers. Doesn't look like anyone said anything, so it looks like I can roll with these two numbers. See if anything in my head is telling me whether or not I'm right or I'm wrong here. But this would be very, very bad if this was a quiz or a test question, knowing good and well you could not use 6 and 2. 6 times 2 gives you 12. 6 times 2 gives you 12. 6 plus 2 is, last time I checked, is 8. Last time I checked, 6 plus 2 is 8. I can't use 6 and 2. I can use 4 and 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. 4 times 3 is 12. So those are the two numbers I'm going to use. Those two numbers you get to use. Any questions before we continue? Let's finish this problem off. So, this is what we started with. Then we took out the negative 2x. So now to finish the problem, negative 2x, we don't touch anymore, that's done. X squared is x times x. 4 into 3, go into parentheses. There's your final factored in. Blue to green to red. Blue to green to red. Any questions on example 4? All right, so for examples 2, 3, and 4, example 2, we took out just a number. Example 3, we took out a variable. And example 4, we took out both a number and a variable. So we at least did one of each type. So let's look at an application. So let's apply what factoring is. So, example 5. An area of a rectangle is given by the expression y squared plus 19y plus 60. Find the expressions that represent the length and the width. Find the expressions that represent the length and the width. So this is one of those type of problems that are up there at that B and A level problems. So area of a rectangle. So let's first just start basic with the area with the rectangle. So if you have a rectangle, you have a length, you have a width. So the area is equal to length times width. something times something else gives you the area. So if you have a rectangle, they're telling you that the area is y squared plus 19y plus 60. That means that something times something else has to equal y squared plus 19y plus 60. You have to figure out what these two somethings are. So to figure out those two somethings, you are factoring. This is a factoring problem. This is a factoring problem. So you're breaking down the problem to figure out what would work. Any questions before we continue? All right, so let's make the screen a little bit bigger so we can do this work. So we follow the same steps that we've been following for factoring. We start with the GCF. Greatest common factor, 1, 19, and 60. So your biggest number is 1. Same variable. So that means the same letter in every part? No. So your GCF is just the number 1. So this is that basic scenario from all the way back when. Basic scenario. So we go right to MAF. So M is that last number, 60. A is that middle number, 19. So we need two numbers that multiply to 60 and add up to 19. Multiply to 60, add up to 19. So multiply to 60. And add up to 19. So it's not 20 times 3. 20 plus 3 is 23. Too small. More like 15 and 4. 15 and 4. So remember, if you struggle with your multiplication tables, I gave you a factor sheet. I need 60. There's all my numbers for 60. There's all of them. Use those, start figuring out what's going to add up to get me to the number that I need. So again, factoring is not easy, especially if you don't know how to multiply real good, but you got to practice it. You're not finessing my way out the system with this. So we got y squared plus 19y plus 60. Open up your two parentheses. Y squared is y times y. 60. There's your 15. There's your 4. We already checked to make sure that it adds up to 19. Problem good. Question with example 5 before we finish up with example 6. All right, let's finish up. The volume of a rectangular box is given by length times width times height. L is the length, W is the width, H is the height. The volume is given using the expression 4m to the third plus 40m squared minus 96m. Find the length, width, and height of this box. So if you really think about it, example 6 is no different from example 5. You're just using a different formula. 5 and 6 are the same thing. So if you have a box, which I am nobody's artist, so there's the best I can do with a box. So here's your length, here's your width, here's your height. So volume equals length times width times height. So that's three things being multiplied together. Three things being multiplied together. So for this problem, that means something times something times something is going to equal that. 40m squared. That expression right there. We just have to figure out what those three somethings are. So just like the last problem, this is a factoring problem. This is a factoring problem. Which will at least get it started. So 4m to the third plus 40m squared minus 96m. 4, 40, and 96. That means your biggest number is 4. They all have an m. So they all have the same variable, which is m. So your greatest common factor is 4m. Since they all have the greatest common factor, you need to divide it out. So divide it all by 4m. That's m squared plus 10m minus 24. So again, that's your first step. Greatest common factor is always your first step, no matter how complicated the problem is. So we use where we left off, do MAF. Last term is negative 24. Middle term is 10. We need two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 10. Positive 12 and negative 2. 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. 12 plus negative 2 is 10. So that's your winning combination. So now you can write your final answer. M stays. M squared is m times m. 12 goes in one parenthesis. Negative 2 goes in the other. There's your final factor answer. So it's not a hard problem. It's just using what you learned and applying it to a situation.